All right, so for this exercise, we are going to set up EveNG. So head on over to the EveNG official website. It's important to understand that EveNG natively works well with VMware Workstation, but we're gonna try to put it into Hyper-V. And for those of you that are new to this, EveNG is basically a network emulation tool where you can practice your Cisco labs, such as working with Cisco firewalls, routers, and switches, Palo Alto firewalls, your 40-gate firewalls, and all that cool jazz. But I'm not going to get into the details of that. Let's go ahead and download the ISO over here as a direct link. So after you've downloaded EveNG, the plan right now is to deploy it as a virtual machine on our HV1. So head on to new and we will create a virtual machine. And we are going to call this virtual machine as ZackNet lab. We can just call it ZackNet netlab 01. Does that make sense? ZackNet network lab 01. And I want to store the virtual machine in a different location. So I will browse over to my HV1's C repository where I've created a folder already, and I will go ahead and select the folder and save as needed, and we will select generation 2 over here because we want the latest and greatest. And for the RAM, the manual for EveNG says that you should have at least 16 gigs of RAM dedicated for this appliance. So let's do 16384. That is the lucky number. And I want to select dynamic memory because I don't want to assign all 16 gigs. It's going to use as much as RAM as it needs to. And I want to select WAN as my connection, so that way it is able to reach out to the internet, and then we can set up virtual networks within the EveNG profile once it's installed. So right now it's asking me to create a virtual hard drive. So again, let's go back to the C repository and I will select this folder, and I'm going to go with 100 gigs. And this can be expanded later or increased later as need be. Okay, so hit next on this and we will select an operating system, and this is going to be the ISO that we just downloaded. So I'm going to hit next on this and hit finish. And it's going to start provisioning the virtual machine. And before we forget, it's very important to go on settings, and then on settings, what I want to do here is I want to assign it at least 8 virtual processors. That's what the manual says. And I am also going to add another network card, which is going to be our Intel network. So we have WAN, and then we have our isolated internal network for our virtual machines that we are going to choose to deploy later. And I'm going to hit apply. And let's start this guy up real quick. All right, so as it's starting, it's going to install Ubuntu in the background because it's open source, of course. And after this, you will get prompted with what language you want to continue the setup with. So you'll choose English, obviously, and hit done. Hit continue. And this is why I said that having a WAN interface is important, because it's pulling the latest and greatest updates. It takes a little while to properly install, so it takes a little bit of patience here. Right, there we are. So for the CLI login, it's going to be root. The password is going to be Eve. It's going to ask you to type in the root password. And a host name for the system. So as I mentioned, we will call this ZackNet Lab 01. ZackNet-NetLab 01. And the domain for the system, we don't have it set up as yet. So ignore that for now. And we will set it as a static IP address. And the IP address that I want to assign it is 192.168.100.1110. And the subnet mask, we're going to go with the class C, 255.255.255.0. And the gateway is going to be our ASUS router. That's going to be 192.168.100.100. And the DNS server is also going to be our ASUS router. That's also going to be 192.168.100.100. And the secondary DNS, I'm just going to leave it as blank. And the hostname IP address of NTP, I'll just use Google. And we're going to connect directly as a direct connection. It looks like it's wanting to restart. Let's log in again. And let's test and verify. Looks like the web page is loading up. And the username is going to be root. Well, I'll take that back. The username for the CLI is root. The web GUI interface, that is a little different. So that's going to be admin and Eve. And there we are. We are logged into EveNG. And before I end the video, I do want to mention that inside EveNG, you are basically running a virtualized network node like Cisco routers, firewalls, switches, servers, things of that nature. And each of these virtual nodes, they tend to generate their own unique MAC address. So when you bridge the EveNG topology to the outside world, which is your WAN interface, the virtual nodes inside the EveNG, they start sending traffic. So it's important that you must enable MAC address spoofing on the virtual adapter. So to do that, you will go on the settings of the virtual machine, and then you'll go to advanced features for that interface, and you will enable MAC address spoofing. And you'll do the same for the internal network as well. And go ahead and hit apply. And that completes the tutorial for right now.